So I've been starting to want to do streams where I can actually talk about some of my fashion interests and what I learn about it. It's hard because in my current life, there's about 3 people who really understand enough of the business and apparel side
It's hard because of my current
of fashion. There's about 3 people who understand it at a level that we can actually talk to each other, and I kind of just feel like I talk them to death all of the time. The audio is muffled. Is it better if I'm closer? Is this better? Sorry. So there's about 3 people in my life who I can talk to about fashion, and I just talk them to death. And I'm tired of talking their ears off about it. So I'm kind of trying to right now I'm trying out YouTube Live as well as the Instagram Live feed to just actually talk to people about some of my thoughts on what's going on right now. A big one being Amazon. And are we fools for not starting to work with Amazon at all? Because there are some people in my life that I know who only shop on Amazon. It's like the only place they really shop, unless they're walking into a shop to buy food. So shouldn't we be paying attention to that audience if we want to be selling as much as we can, to as wide of an audience as we can? Shouldn't Amazon be a group that we're really interested in catering to? A lot of people aren't even interested in taking the type of photos that Amazon insists you take to be able to put it online. One of the reasons I think this really matters is something I think we've all even actually done, which is showrooming, which is we'll go to a shop in person to shop for an item and then go home and buy it on Amazon as opposed to buying it in the shop itself. It's been a problem with shops. It's part of why right now Amazon is starting to beat Macy's in terms of sales as being an actual showroom. And so it's the kind of thing we can go to Macy's, try on items, and then go to Amazon and find it cheaper. It's kind of one of those weird fluxes. And when you think about it like that, there's a lot of designers who would just kill to be in Macy's. They would just love it. They would have an unbelievable audience, unbelievably bigger than anything that they're used to, by just being in Macy's. And when you start seeing Amazon beating Macy's, why wouldn't we want to be on Amazon? I've not really heard good critiques to why we don't want to do that. The best one probably being that Amazon's very sterile, and that fashion's really like an emotional decision, and we tend to do things based on emotion. They don't give us artistic control of the landscape. We don't get to set the tone of Amazon. But I would really hope we could find ways to do that before directing them to Amazon. The other thing people really don't like about Amazon is they take a steep cut. It's hard to not like that, but it's hard to like that. But it's part of the services they provide. If you think about it like the Macy's example, it'd be like paying to be in Macy's, which is something that ostensibly might as well be happening, because you're paying to get into the types of books that people who shop at Macy's shop in to make their purchasing decisions. Really, in that sense, it's much lower. When you think about all of the customer data Amazon is able to get all of the time, it surpasses everything we'd ever be able to do on our own. Just really, the amount of information they have on any individual shopper. So if they begin to see that your items sell very well with other kinds of items, they'll instantly be able to give you those kind of recommendations, as well as those kind of recommendations to your customer. So not only will your customer be able to see you more, you'll be able to start seeing what your customers are also buying, what's actually connected to your brand, which is something that is very different than when you have a separate website and sell on your own. I was hoping for more comments, but up to this point, not much. Again, Amazon is not a very cool place to shop. It's just not. It's not very emotionally engaging. It's kind of an ugly website. It kind of looks like the bins, if you will. And if you shop there for clothing right now, that's what it really is. It looks like heavily discounted luxury brands that are coming in directly from China. And that's what it's really good for. If you want to find really good, cheap turtlenecks or very good, cheap, kind of normcore luxury stuff, Amazon's a good place to shop. If I wanted to, however, shop for what I might call like ultra gothic or high art fashion, there's not even a place on Amazon to begin to find that. And that actually is an indicator that there's space for that. I think a better place you could see that is probably in steampunk. Because I know the types of people who shop on Amazon, the types of people who shop almost exclusively on Amazon, are the same types who are super into steampunk. And so if you could create higher quality wares that you could offer on Amazon, basically the same thing that occurs on Etsy anyway, you have a built-in automatic target audience. I was looking at notes about Amazon. In the UK, Amazon handles half of its own shipping because of the mail there can't even keep up with the amount of orders that occur. You think about what that really means in the UK. I know most of us here aren't really selling in the UK, and we're probably not even going to reach over there. But just to further communicate what a juggernaut Amazon is and why fashion designers need to start working with Amazon and should ring true to that fact that the mail service itself in the UK can't handle Amazon. Just Amazon shipping on its own. Amazon has to handle half of its own shipping. I was hoping to get more feedback from people who would be able to tell me their feelings on Amazon and what. It's all retail and gross income either way you look at it. There is something to be said about that, but Amazon has incentive to help advertise your stuff for you and to help drive your products for you if you're willing to play ball. An example of that would be the showrooming thing. There's a couple companies in Portland where Amazon got numbers on the foot traffic of who was walking around downtown Portland, and they were able to recommend to fashion designers where they should put up shops based on monitoring the foot traffic. And part of this is Amazon knows that those people will be able to go to that showroom there, look at the items, check it out, and then if they decide to make a purchase later, go home and make that purchase on Amazon. So it in itself is not just an online retail site. They have tools to really advantage you. Amazon itself is probably not such a great company, but if you're really looking at making individual sales, it's not a bad way to go. When I used to work with Common Fibers, an example would be people would go to our website, shop, leave, and go to Amazon and make the purchase there, even though it would often cost them more money to buy directly on Amazon. I think it really had to do with they trust the mail service. Even Amazon Prime. If we think about it from an Amazon Prime level, that those people who shop only on Amazon, it's not like they don't want to buy things that aren't on Amazon. They just shop it off of Amazon and then go to Amazon to make the purchase. So for a designer, what they might want to object on a creativity or a beauty angle, Amazon's not really there to be beautiful, and it really caters to an engineer audience. And when we're thinking about designers here in the Pacific Northwest, that is it. It is an engineer audience. It is the Microsoft people who have the money. Yes, the Amazon prices do often match big name retail companies right on the website. Sometimes you can get smaller discounts, but they do often match. One of it, though, is that you can't do on Amazon, that you couldn't do in a retail shop, that you can do on Amazon. That example, if you wanted to get an oversized hoodie, and you knew even right down to the brand you wanted, if you go to Amazon, it'll start recommending other oversized hoodies. And you can start doing price comparison. And then you really know if the value of the hoodie that you're buying is worth it because you're able to compare everything else that's around it. Compared to if you just go into Macy's and you really want a certain type of coat, they're only going to have 3 or 4 options. There's only 3 or 4 things you can really do. I think another reason a lot of designers really don't want to work with Amazon, and this is something that they don't say outright, but I notice it in working with them, is that Amazon actually wants very specific types of product shots. And they want them to be in line when you put it up on the website. So they're not willing to take the time to get those types of product shots made to put it online. So it's a very hard thing to introduce the idea that they need to spend more time and money in creating certain types of shots that they don't feel necessarily matches energetically with their brand. And that's one of the things I think is very silly, that your brand shouldn't need to have the entire theme around it set up to be able to communicate what it's supposed to be emotionally. There are plenty of brands out there that can accomplish this with just the way the model is looking, the way the model is acting, the makeup, if there's movement in the shot, if there's not movement in the shot. I was looking at Vogue earlier, and this company, Preen, does a great job of that in their recent line shots. That even though they have a very gothic type makeup situation going on, that they're able to introduce movement into their line shots, which is something you can completely do under Amazon's terms. Scared out their whole audience. And this is part of the problem I talk about, like boring people with it. It's really, I don't feel like there's a huge audience that's interested in talking about the business side of fashion. Everyone wants to talk about the artistic side. We all want to talk about the underground New York Fashion Week, where we get to see some like unbelievably clever and innovative fashion, but nobody really wants to talk about what it takes to put that into place. I also am someone who looked at some of the underground fashion week stuff going on in New York, and that's where we see people like Heidi Lee coming through with her Echo hat, which is a hat that has many faces going along the side. It's one of those ones that it's hard to describe, but if you're at a computer and you wanted to Google Echo hat by Heidi Lee, it's fantastic to look at. There's some where she's really decked out the item. Trump has started to talk about wanting to raise all international trade, specifically like the retail trade, by 10%. And that's got me thinking about, like, why don't we see more already? Well, how is that going to influence the way clothing looks? And because we're going to be using people who are probably outside of China. We're already starting to set out manufacturing hubs in Africa because of the fear of the TPP too. It's happening to South America, where there's a lot of hesitation to trade. It got me thinking about, like, why is there not more going on with trade with Russia in terms of apparel? And looking at it, is Russia set up a lot of its own kind of barriers to ship out private products. The exception for that, there's a hub where they don't have that going on, in Siberia. And if you look at Siberian fashion line artists, actually a lot of my favorite fashion designers right now are coming out of Siberia. I didn't recognize that till I researched it. I think some of that actually has to do with Siberia. They neglect all the trends. Everyone I work with here in the States, we're super on top of the trends. We all know what's going on. We all see the recurring themes, and we also watch a lot of the celebrities. In Siberia, in Russia, the designs are much more out of the creator's head, and they almost kind of look more like anime-inspired outfits. Which I think is part of that world building, because when you have nothing, you can really start from scratch and describe what you want the entire world to look like around you. I do have this going on at YouTube as well. Let me check that chat. I guess this is about as much as I could expect. Whoops. But still just wanted to keep ringing true that we're all maybe fools for not wanting to work more with Amazon. That there's a large list of things Amazon has going on with it that we're being silly and trying to neglect, that we're being silly and trying to avoid it. And in fact, a lot of the people who become the first movers, I believe, in utilizing Amazon will very quickly have unbelievable growth potential. Just very quickly. Like I was saying, this, like if you're into steampunk styles, that very Etsy wear, if you could just get it a little bit more mainstream, not necessarily huge mainstream, you will have beat all the competition, because all the competition right now on Amazon looks like it's costume wear. And so a little bit of extra effort solves that. And that's a place that you can have on your own with very little competition in the space. I feel the same way about the Gothic scene right now on Amazon. It's bare. It's mostly costume wear. I went there trying to find it myself, but the real fashion designers, the real artists, just want nothing to do with it. And it's a very clear opening that's going to exist for people, and there's plenty of ways to deal with how ugly the Amazon website is. If you're a fashion designer that insists right now on having their own feel, setting up your own website that connects directly to Amazon for them to be able to make sales for your individual products can relieve a lot for you. It makes it easier that you don't need to follow all of your own point of service stuff. It lets you control the atmosphere, and it lets you get an audience beyond just those who go to your website, and gives you an audience, some of the incentive for people to buy, over $50 to get premium prices, the free shipping prices, people who already have Amazon Prime, things like that. There's so much experimental approaches we could be taking to the web right now in private lines. Private lines can be trying so many experimental things on the web, things that big lines will never try to do, and Amazon is a great place to test that out. It's a great place right now. We see that in all the data that's coming through. I think there's something to be said. Also, Amazon, we can't communicate the proper aesthetic. That it looks too much like a bargain bin place. That if you want a space that you can seem really creative in, that you can really show that your brand has dominance, and anywhere it goes, it's in description writing, it's what you can do within the limitations of the pictures itself. It's working within the framework of Amazon, and insisting that your design is so prevalent that your messaging and your creative side is so dominant that you are able to still communicate through it on Amazon. It's just, I don't know how to put it, besides it's very clear to me there's money there right now. And there's some brands who are working with Amazon where you're starting to, when I worked with them, it was coming through. They still hated Amazon because Amazon wanted to take such a chunk of the pie. But if they just adjusted it better, if they just insisted their place to be was on Amazon, and stopped trying to be, squeeze a rock for water, if you will, then it would have been a place where they could have really dominated. Amazon itself has its own type of SEO built into it, and it's much simpler and much less competitive than actual SEO, than actual search engine optimization. So for fashion designers, there's just obvious growth potential there. It's obvious ways to make sales. I was hoping to get more interaction, but that's all I got at this point. Thank you so much.